Welcome to the Leadership Labs with DeepRec.ai, a podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of deep tech entrepreneurship, company founders and venture capitalists. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and I'm thrilled to have you join us in this exciting journey. In each episode, we explore the minds behind groundbreaking technologies, the visionaries who dare to push the boundaries of innovation, and the investors who fuel the growth of tomorrow's game changers. Hello everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Leadership Labs with DeepRec. Today's guest is Carsten Kraus. Carsten is a serial founder, currently a founder of CK Holding and CEO and founder at Casablanca.ai. In this episode, we're going to talk about Carsten's background, what got him into entrepreneurship, his experience as being an angel investor, and what he's seen that has helped other founders become successful with their own AI startups. But before we get into it, Carsten, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Really happy to have you as a guest.
Thank you, Andy.
Great. Look, before we get into anything, I always want to go back. As I said, want to really find out where your entrepreneurial spirit has come from. So yeah, tell us a little bit about you, early parts in your life and your career, whether it's education, family, like where did the urge for entrepreneurship come from?
I don't know where the drive came from, but I know that I started my first company when I was 16 years old at school, and before that I actually was a teacher at school, also besides being a pupil, because there was nobody giving computer lessons, and I had taught myself a bit, and I asked the director to allow me to also teach, and that was an extracurricular activity, so people were going there without getting any marks, just learning things, and I was allowed, and there was an extra teacher in the background who just supervised that nobody did any serious harm to other pupils, and so I built this thing up to 150 out of 800 pupils at school, 150 doing computer science, well, not science, rather using computers. That was like 4 years before the Commodore 64. So it's long ago, and I was a younger pupil myself. But I was quite gifted in mathematics and other things at the time, so the director allowed this. And that was the very start. And then I met my co-founder, the first one, in my class. And we started the first company when we were 16, selling the software we had written so far. That turned into developing a programming language extension for the Commodore 64. And I left school before doing my final exams to go around, meet the press, and try to make the solution known. And we had very good articles in the magazines, and sold a lot while we were still pupils. So we went up to 51,000 marks per month revenue, which is at that time it was like maybe $20,000 or so, and which was a lot at the time per month. So that was the best month actually. So these were the things, and then after that, I always had made inventions and started new companies out of these inventions. So the next thing was I invented a new architecture for programming language interpreters. Sold this to Atari computers. That was after school, so selling, and they distributed it with all computers in Europe, but paid us only 80 pennies per computer. At the time, 40 cents. So, and still, we were happy doing this, sold add-ons, then Atari went broke, I started the next thing, and so on. And my biggest asset so far was FactFinder, the European market leader for search and navigation in large online stores. We were the first to tackle and solve the problem of similarity search, so finding things which were misspelled. 2 years before Google did this "did you mean" thing. And many were trying this, but we were the first to succeed and became market leader in search inside large online stores. So 40 of the top 100 online stores in Germany were using our technology, and are using, because the company still exists, I just exited it, and over 2,000 2,000 online stores are using it throughout Europe. So these are the things. In total, there was 12 companies, including daughter companies of companies I had. And I'm just about to start my 13th company, which is going to build an amulet with AI in it. Together with the neuroscientist, I do this, and this is meant to do nudging in daily practice and help you to learn better, avoid eating too much, and doing these things. We've just registered the patent for the general idea behind this.
Pretty cool. I mean, very, very impressive, right? Entrepreneur at 16. Had there been entrepreneurs in the family before, or was this just something that you got good at computers, really young, and then you kind of developed the business brain behind it, or was there sort of people talking business around the dinner table? Was that a thing?
Definitely not business around the dinner table. So I grew up without my father. My father and mother were together as students, and they separated before I was born. So I didn't actually grow up with my mother because she was a student and she couldn't really afford studying, so she had to work a lot. And I grew up with my great-grandmother. So she came over and moved to the city where my mother lived, so that my mother could visit me once or twice a week. And before entering school, I grew up in a 35 square meter flat, so about 350 square feet. That's not very big, and we didn't have a toilet in the flat. That was in the hallway, so we had to leave the flat and go out for the toilet, and we didn't have a bathroom either, so one way where I could shower or do these things, so I had to wash in front of a washing basin. So that was when I was tiny, so before school. Then later my mother became a doctor, but she was not entrepreneurial at all, and she went broke actually as a doctor. And she was a very, very good doctor. But she served every patient to be equal and these things, and definitely that doesn't work there either. So when you take a lot of time, you can do that, treat everybody equally bad, but if you treat everybody with a lot of time as a doctor, then it doesn't work in the German system, at least. Maybe it works in Cuba or somewhere else. But so entrepreneurial, no. My father actually had he was buying and selling things. Fashion items at the time so I have some genes maybe for that. But there was no dinner table talk about these things.
Yeah, no, I find that, I find that really, really fascinating. Because I come from I hate to use the term, but a broken home, right? And I guess that's what they call them. And it becomes really, the expectation is that, a child from a broken home is not going to achieve. And then obviously there's always people who are, they're not the rule, but they're unique to it, and obviously you're one of those. And for me, I would look, I'm not as successful as you, but I would like to think I'm slowly becoming there on my way. And I think for me, a big motivator is that I just wanted not to fail. And that's my entrepreneurial motivator. It's not like that it's not like that I'm good at business. It's not like that I'm good at sales or any of these things. But the want to fail outweighs everything else. Or the want to not fail, should I say.
Okay.
Where does it come from you, right? You've mentioned, a 35 square meter flat. It's very easy for you to not really want to push yourself up and want more. Where did more or wanting to take it start with you, or do you know?
I think my drive does not come from monetary reasons. So what I want to do is bring things into the world and do new things and so just change the world in a good way. And so if I have some ideas where I can do something better, then I try to realize this and also want to bring it on the market. So I was making money as a side effect, let's say this way. And of course, when I do a deal with a company or so, of course I want to make money with that also. But the original ideas that did not come from how can I make money, how can I make money, how can I make money. It was rather, oh, I have an idea how to solve something in a better way. And when I solved this, then I said, how can I make money with that? Or maybe a bit earlier, so when I started solving, I said, if I put a lot of effort into that, will it pay off in some way?
Yeah.
Done. So, and actually my drive is not to not fail, my drive is to succeed. And and the difference is I risk failing, and I did so a number of times. So certain things did not work out, and I was also on these fuck up nights to these events where I talked to people about things I did wrong, and you can learn from that, and everybody can learn from things you do wrong, and not everybody has to make the same mistakes.
Good. Do you know what? Great, because that's exactly where I was going to ask you next. So you knew where you were good from the start. You know, you had technology, you were interested, and you wanted to solve problems.
Mm.
What did you not know?
Oh, a lot about business. So we did so many mistakes with the first things. So like the first products we did not package, and it means that dealers had much more difficulty to sell them. And the reason was that the family of my co-founder was against wasting money on packaging, because everybody throws the packaging away anyway. And so we discussed this, and I could not really convince them that packaging is helpful to sell. And I think that cost us a lot of sales in the stores. In the very beginning. Later on, we did packaging, and we worked with stores. We did work with stores in the beginning, but it had this difficulty. So that was one thing. Another thing was we were, for the Commodore 64, this extension required how do you call this thing in English? Something where it was hardware, and and we had an epoxy board where you soldered all these ICs on. How do you call this thing?
Which I think it's just a board, no?
Yeah. So I can look it up. So you can cut this out, because it's much easier to explain if I use the right word. Just a second. Okay, so it's a printed circuit board. So okay, so but it also says board. So we used hardware for this for the Commodore 64 extension, and the hardware was on a printed circuit board, and this board needed to be produced somewhere, and we ordered 100 pieces for the very start. And when we sold the first 100, that was just like when the first article was in the first smaller computer magazine. Then we wanted to order again, and I said we need 500, and my co-founder said 100, and we agreed on 300, and we would have needed more than 1,000. And so it took 8 weeks to deliver those things at the time. So we couldn't sell anything, even though we had orders. For like 6 weeks, and because there were more articles coming up on the Commodore 64 extension, and
you must have been some of the busiest teenagers in the world.
And so this was an interesting time, and so looking back, you see me smiling. So it was also a great time seeing how well it was received. And some of these articles were very, very enthusiastic about our development. And we were real teenagers, like 16, 17-year-old teenagers who developed this. So we just felt great because everybody liked it so much. And the same actually went with the Atari computer programming language. We were 70 times faster than what Atari developed on their own. So there were some fundamental changes I made in the architecture, and also the code, which was mainly written by a third person who entered the company, and partly by my co-founder, and only to a tiny bit by myself. Also, the code was written in a great way, and this other guy knew every bit of the computer. But the combination of the two things, the architecture, the algorithms, and the code, made us 70 times faster. And that, when you have the fastest programming language on a computer, it somehow fills you with a feeling of, wow, so I did this, or we did this. That's such a great feeling. And with the new things I'm doing now, right now you see Casablanca, and everybody I tell this, or almost everybody, says, wow, you solve a big problem of the world. So Casablanca changes the view, the angle of the video view. So right now, when you see this as a video podcast, not if you just listen to it, but if people are seeing this as a video podcast, you can see that I'm looking at Anthony, and I just look directly at Anthony. It's not something different, So we stop that people look on the sides of each other, or look at the forefront, at the foreheads of other people, because Casablanca changes this by software only. And that's also a great feeling, to probably be the second company out of Germany in AI that becomes a global household name.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to achieve. Yeah. So
100 million users in 5 years.
Yeah, that's the idea. So probably in 7 years. So the plan. Yeah, but still, it's a great number. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so we've talked about that. We've talked about sort of mistakes. So now, after coming in and you've known tech, you've known computers, where did you upskill yourself? Or I guess even where did you set a list of saying, right, after my experience I've picked up, I now need to get more valuable skills, but you can't learn everything. What did you consider to be the most valuable skills for you to learn?
I think there is an equilibrium. So you have to even these things out. So if you, as a founders team, let's say, you have to even this out. And we were all tech guys, so there was nobody in the founders team who was like a business guy. So I decided to be the business guy in the beginning. And read all those business books, and I subscribed to Harvard Business Review, which was very, very helpful in the beginning, actually. At that time, they had like these 8 or 12-page articles which went into depth, and that was very helpful, actually. So I started to read business books a lot, and also subscribe to university, inscribed at university, for business, not for computer science. Unlike my two co-founders. So I tried to learn all those business skills. And I'm good at learning from reading. I'm generally good at learning, but I made a test, and learning from reading is by far my best way to acquire new skills. Of course, the best way is always to learn it because you experience it, but that takes a lot longer, and you make very costly mistakes.
The skill of life.
So actually, I'm not that guy who can learn so well from podcasts. Of course, I use them while driving, but I can actually read much faster and acquire much more knowledge by reading. But that's different for most people. So as by statistics, I read that most people can learn better from watching other people and from seeing people speak. So YouTube is a great channel for most people to learn, not so much for me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So I guess if you were to break it down into business, business is sales, planning, forecasting, communication, finance. There's
Yeah,
endless amounts of business topics you could say.
yeah.
What
If you miss
what
out
would you
on this
say
part,
then?
yeah. Sorry, if you miss out on business, then it does not help you business wise if you are a great tech guy. Um, Whereas some people make great businesses out of low tech, let's say, or out of tech that somebody else has developed before and they just copy it. So
Yeah.
probably business is the more universal skill.
I
But
mean,
the world will,
Facebook was not the first social media. TikTok definitely isn't.
true.
So yeah, it's the biggest ones have been around ages. Netflix is kind of like blockbusters, extra vision.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, where did you list off? I guess in terms of important business skills for a tech company.
Pardon, what do you mean list off?
What would you list as the important business
Okay.
skills?
Um, so I think when you start a business, you have to be able to make a general general plan or have a general idea of what you want to achieve. Keep all this in mind at the same time, and that's not so easy for some people. That's not only business; it's just having a full picture in your mind where you want to go. When you start, so you have some tech idea or some product idea, but then the question is, so what are the target customers? What could they sell for, and so on and so on. And then you have to keep all this in mind in order to develop your product. So that's some skill that some people miss who start because they only look at certain parts of it. But then generally I would say sales and or marketing is probably the key skill. So either you have a B2B product, then you have to be able to sell it to some people, or you have to have a broader product like my Casablanca, where I think marketing skills are more important than sales skills. Because you can generate pull for a product like this, but you have to get people to know that it exists and believe that you solve this, and make them test it. So that's
Yeah.
yeah, and then you don't have to sell
It is a
because
very marketable product.
pardon?
Casablanca is a very marketable product, right? You see
Yeah,
Synthesia, you see Oxolo. Would we say viral? They're quite viral AI products, right? I
yeah,
think Casablanca could definitely fall into the same
yeah.
position as them.
Yeah, I also I read a book on viral marketing for that, and also of course gave it to our marketing people. So, yeah, so viral marketing is probably something we need to excel on to make Casablanca go around the world and be used by everyone.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
And when you have enough marketing pull, then you don't need sales so much. Of course, you still need to be able to deal with big companies who want to implement it in their company. So you shouldn't really mess up there. But you don't need to be an outgoing, active sailor if you have enough marketing pull. Whereas you can be a great sales guy and you have no marketing skills when you have a B2B product that sells to very few people and you make big tickets for each sale. That also works.
Yeah.
I think so. You need either sales or marketing depending on the product, and of course a combination of both skills is great. But that's something that every company needs that wants to make money. And then it depends on what kind of company you build. So there are companies which were quite small before they were acquired, like Instagram, and so HR skills are not as important there as if you grow a company. When you grow a company, you have to have the skill to keep your people on board, aligned, active, loyal, not quitting so quickly, attract new people, and so on. But if you build a tiny company with just a great market, or WhatsApp is probably even more extreme in that aspect. So then you have to focus on other things. Yeah, so there are a lot of things you can learn, and it depends a lot on your business, on the kind of business you're working on. So one of the companies I currently own is growing well, so doubled in the last 2 years. But it's an older part of it was a part of an older company, and it has to get these things off, some habits that were taken in the older company. So then you have to have the power of changing things, and the COO I selected for that company has an excellent skill in just saying, okay, now we change this, and he really pushes that through the people, and that worked, and so we doubled revenue in the last 2 years.
Yeah, change management is difficult, right? It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that startups may face, not as often, right? Maybe if you have to pivot technology and you're stuck in between, do we go left, do we go right, and you don't have team buy-in, then you get it. But a situation like that where you're coming into like a legacy German company and you've got to try and bring them up to modern age tech, it's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're a bigger company, of course, if you have like 10,000 people or so, then it gets much more challenging, because then you also have a lot of law coming in, and all these unions and so on. And some companies didn't make it, like most of the big old mail order companies like Neckermann and Quelle and some others have actually lost the changing game. They were not changing fast enough, and they could not put the change fast enough in the right way into their companies. Yeah. So you have to keep the real values of the company. It's not like throwing away the full company. You have to find out what is important of the history you have, and what you need to keep, and what you have to get rid of, and then you have to put this into the people. And so I just wanted to say there are very different skills which are needed according to where the company currently stands. And in some cases it can be totally different skills than when you start a company from scratch. One thing I think is, which is general to all entrepreneurs, is you have to take some risk. And people who cannot take risks should not be entrepreneurs. They can be self-employed, but when you really want to grow a company and you never take risks, that's not helpful.
Yeah. So good way to segue in. You know, we're talking about risk takers. You're an angel investor. So yeah, what first off, what do you look for in a company if you're going to consider them as a potential angel investor? If we talk before, I don't want to talk about the founders. I really just want to talk about the company, and then we'll move into the other parts of it next.
Okay, so my personal investment profile is, I'm trying to look for really interesting innovations that have the potential to grow big and change something in the way people live and work. So generally, if the market, the total market, the TAM, the total addressable market, is below 1 billion euros in revenue, then I will probably not invest. So I think I have not invested in any company that addresses a smaller market than that. And of course, they will not get all of this market. If they grow to 100 million or more, that's fine. So I have not seen any company growing so fast, so big in the range where I invested. But if the total addressable market is a tiny niche, I'm not investing. So that's the one thing. Then normally these companies have to do with AI. So either they are building some AI functionality themselves, so researching also. So I invested in one company, Istari, in Mannheim, who developed some. It's not a large language model like GPT, but it's some other kind of language model they develop in a way that it uses less compute to do the same task, and by that they can scan every company website every like 2 weeks without using too much compute. So like that, I'm talking about 800,000 company websites in Germany so far. They are going to expand to Europe also. And they can do that without spending too much on compute and spending too much power, also wasting too much power there. And one of them stays part of his time at Harvard, even though he's a German, and does some co-research with some people at Harvard. So they're very, let's say, very deep into technology. Of course, there are other companies which have just taken some AI and brought it to a product. But generally, if companies don't have any AI ideas, it's not my focus of investment. So I would maybe still take it if it were a great business opportunity. But generally, I invest in companies that do have AI somewhere in their mind.
Nice. Now I want to get into arguably a little bit more of a difficult point, right? You don't only invest in a company, you invest in the founding team.
Yeah, of course.
You invest in its leaders for the company's success. And obviously, you've got 12, soon to be 13 companies that you've been through yourself, so you've seen it from very much both sides of the fence, the investment side, the entrepreneur side. How do you rate? I even hate the term rate. How do you rate the skills of leaders that you're potentially going to invest in? What do you look for as being important?
So I think it's very important that the leaders are not too much convinced of knowing everything. So I've made one investment in a company where the CEO, the founder, was very much convinced that he knows everything and he does everything right. And it worked until they had like $1 million revenue, and then they completely stopped growing. So they tried to, but it didn't work well because he was controlling everything, and he was not taking any advice by anybody. And I think if people stop learning, they stop growing. So it's very important that people are open to advice, both by co-founders, by the market, and by the investors. So that's something. I'm not focused on founding teams. There could also be a single founder. So it's not that I say it always needs to be a team. I'm also not actively looking for diverse teams. So I'm not saying that there must be a man and a woman in the founding team, or there must be something. But it turns out that when you have some more, let's say, openness in every way, it's very helpful for a founding team. So the mixed founding teams normally have a better way of going open-minded into the world. Even though more than half of the teams I invested in are male only, so still I think it's a good thing, but it doesn't mean that I have to that they have to be like this. So if there's a woman in the team, normally the team is better, but I would not invest in the team just because there's a woman in there, but because the team is better.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big element of it where it comes in. Tech is massively mismatched in gender diversity anyway, right? It's pretty hard. And then I believe statistically there is less female founders in AI than there is male founders. Again, talking about risk adverse, so there's those challenges come with it. But I had a very interesting chat with someone probably just last week or the week before, and again they've identified this diversity as being a challenge. And what they actually do is, he's a founder himself, and when he goes to hire people, he looks to hire for diversity of thought. He likes to hire people that are
Thought, yeah, right.
of
That's good.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
people
good.
that are just not like the same people in his team. He's like, oh great, this guy used to be in the army. This guy used to be in sales, but they're software engineers now, right? And it just creates it almost creates a diverse environment, or being able to get that diversity of thought. And I hate to say it, but it would probably be easier to aim for diversity of thought than 50-50 gender diversity in tech. Just look, I'm not saying it's not possible, but in certain locations in Germany, right, it's going to be difficult in certain locations in Europe.
Yeah.
And I don't think any European country is 50-50. So any company that is doing 50-50, well done.
Yeah, so the thing is, I have never put any quota to these things, but looking for this diversity of thought leads to some mix. So in FactFinder, when I sold it, we had 160 people. We were 26 nationalities, and all of them in Pforzheim or Berlin. So it's not including people working around the world for us, but we were just hiring them in the places. But 26 nationalities in 160 people is quite a lot.
It's pretty good for 2 locations.
Yeah, and we had people from under 18 up to 60 something, and 38% female, and so on. But we had never had any quotas for anything, so it was not like we need to hire somebody who is, I don't know, over 50 or something. So we just were open-minded, looking for the people who are fitting, and that worked well. And fitting is like, right, diversity of thought. So adding to this team, adding this guy or this girl to this team adds to the team, because that's what you have to hire for. You have to hire for not like how good is this person, but how much will the team grow when you add this person to the team. That's the general attitude in hiring.
Yeah, team contributions outweigh individual contributions.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, every minute of every day.
Yeah, and also the other way around. So if you hire a jerk who is brilliant, the team can still have less results.
Yeah, I know. So I wanted to just touch on again about founders and keep it going there. So you've mentioned you're not necessarily working with just like founding teams or sometimes individuals. Is there skill sets that you look for a founder to have, which you say, right, the market's right, this founder hits these skills, I'm really liking the feel of this.
So when you start, you know, when you want to run a business, it depends on what the company needs, what kind of skills the company needs. So when you differentiate by technology, or let's say if you differentiate by AI and you don't have somebody who knows AI really well in the founding team, then the company will probably not succeed. When the key skill of the company is to, let's say, grow the market virally in a short time, and you don't have a brilliant marketer in the founding team, the company will not succeed. So it depends on what this company wants to achieve and what the required skills are. And I say that all the required skills have to be in the founding team. So all the key skills the company needs. And sometimes there are skills which are key skills for one company but are not for the other company.
Yeah.
And these non-key skills, which are still necessary, can be hired. So you can have them in the second line. You don't need them to be in the C level of the company. And so it depends which skills are there, but you have to look at what will this company need, and when you don't find this, then tell them, I don't invest until you hire somebody who understands this. Until you not hire, but you also give them shares and everything. So there might be only 10% shares or whatever, but so like you take them into the real founding team. And if you don't do that, I don't invest.
Nice. Really, really solid advice, right? Got to bring them in. You got to get them committed. If you give them good sweat equity, they're there. They're there for the long term. If they see the vision and they can play a
Yeah,
part, right?
that's it.
Um, I wanted to ask you before we finish into some quick fire questions, because I know it's something you've been playing a bit of a role with lately. But you've recently been meeting with the European Parliament about the new European AI Act. Um, as I said, you get to be like the Wizard of Oz. You get to peek behind the curtains. You get to see what's going on. Um, so look, a lot of people who listen to this won't ever know and won't ever get that opportunity. So look, what's it been like?
So the key thing is that I think that the European AI Act is very dangerous for Europe. So not for the AI companies, maybe for them also, but not so much. But for all companies. So the key thing is that if you don't use AI in 5 or 10 years, or if you don't use deep learning general purpose AI like GPT, then you will probably have at least 20% less productivity. And if you have 20% less productivity, you cannot win in any market. So European companies will fall behind a lot if we put all this bureaucracy on AI, and companies will probably abstain from using AI if they have to put all this bureaucracy before they are using any AI. So I think it's very important that if the AI comes, that the European Parliament makes it very easy to understand what you can do and cannot do, and how to do this in an easy way, and also help them to do it in an easy and cheap way without having very expensive auditions and things, so that all the mid-sized companies, so I'm talking not only about the 5 and 10 people companies, but also about the 500 and 1,000 people companies, that all these mid-sized companies can stay in play. Because else, if they have to pay 200,000 euros for an audition, which is something that was estimated by Applied AI, a German association, if they have to pay that beforehand, before using one AI functionality, then they will probably just not use it. So this only applies to high-risk AI, but now the question is, will everybody be easily able to find out what is high risk and what is not? And now that general purpose AI and is generally put under the assumption that it might be high risk, things will get difficult. So that was the reason. So I want to. This is not because of my companies, because none of my companies are producing high risk AI, as by the general the current definition, so it does not influence my companies. But I do this. I'm acting there as a citizen who wants to keep Europe alive for the future. So, okay.
Yeah.
I met with a number of with 4 members of parliament and 1 member of the commission, and so right now the AI discussions went into trilogue. So it was initiated by the commission. Then the parliament had a say, and they made some amendments, a lot of amendments to the suggestions of the European Commission, and now the trilogue mainly finds out if this is the one side of the possibilities and this is the other, where in between will we locate the final regulation, and they cannot easily go out of these to the outside of the boundaries. That's a bad thing right now. So there's one very important law which has to stay in place and has to be promoted, that it's and has to be controlled, that it stays easy. So I talked to Dragos Tudorescu, who was part of these people who initiated this law or this regulation, and this is that if you think you could be in high risk but you're not sure, you will get a questionnaire by the EU, which is easy. He promised easy to fill out. It's not finished yet. It's easy to fill out and easy to answer, also by smaller companies, and And when you go through this, you can find out yourself whether you're high risk or not. And if you're not high risk, you can send this in. And if nobody objects within 3 months, then you're free and you can sell your software without coping with any of the bureaucracy of the high risk thing. And also all the users cannot. So this is a very
admin light.
Hmm?
It's light on admin at least, right? Fill in this document, should be short. Wait 3 months. I mean, what startup can wait 3 months if they need to sell a software?
Yeah, when you do this while you construct your software, Casablanca has taken 2.5 years of research. I have 4 researchers on this, so we could have done this in the process. So of course, if you have some small thing you are just innovating right now, 3 months can be bad, but still, so if you don't have this regulation, this part, then everything gets much more obscure, and you will always be under risk. When you get this regulation, and if it really gets easy, so I'm not talking about a 200 pages questionnaire, I'm talking about a 2 pages questionnaire of maybe 5 pages with easy questions, easy to answer, and I'm hoping for something like a 2 pages questionnaire with easy questions. So if
yes and no answers,
that's happening, it could maybe rescue the European companies. But so still 3 months is bad. It's really bad in quick markets. But when you do this while you're still constructing your software, your solution, and then you have your 3 months finished when you launch the software, then it could be okay. I mean, I would wish that we could limit this again to the things they had done in the very beginning. So in the very beginning, high risk was only if it was medicine or self-driving cars or energy networks or other critical infrastructure. And right now, high risk is a long list of possibilities.
Well, I mean, these high-risk companies that you mentioned, they already have to report into certain authorities already, which they have to get. They have to pass grades. They have to go, like, if you do a safety critical product around fire, you have to be able to pass a fire systems critical test, right? The same way a fire station has to pass it.
Right.
Same way Toyota have to pass a test that a car is safe to drive. Autonomous software has to pass the same test. So again, they should be passing that test even if it's high risk, right?
Right. Yeah. So the big companies in that field, they are absolutely they are familiar with passing tests and doing these things. So it's not as big as an obstacle to them as it will be to a mid-sized company doing some whatever HR software or something. I think that it's really important that we keep this now as lightweight as possible and as easy to understand as possible if we have to have this kind of regulation. So this one thing with the 3 month is something that makes it easier for the smaller companies, and we just have to make sure that this is executed really well with the smaller companies in mind, or with the mid-sized companies. I'm not talking about 10 people companies, I'm talking about also 500 people companies who will still not invest that money for every step they do with AI. So yeah.
Carsten, are you ready for the final quickfire questions?
Yeah, okay.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Nice, quick and easy. What's the best content, and it could be a book, podcast, movies, that you would recommend for other entrepreneurs or listeners?
Okay, so very good. So I would read. So definitely I would subscribe to Harvard Business Review again, because that gives a lot of insights from different angles and helped me a lot in running companies. Then when you start a company, I think you have to learn that you have to test rather than have everything in mind beforehand. So the Lean Startup is probably by Eric Ries, is probably a very good book to get that spirit into your company or into yourself. I also like Geoffrey Moore. that 2 books depending on when you are on. So I also like Geoffrey Moore. You can mark this as a so I also like Geoffrey Moore. Crossing the Chasm is one book that gives you insights into market stages and helps people outgrow this 1 million stop where many companies stop. And when you have a bigger company or you are doing a management buyout of a bigger company, I think Escape Velocity by the same author is also a great book. Another good book is Decisive. I don't know the authors right now, so Decisive helps you to put some methodology to decisions, and there are a lot of decisions you have to make when you start a company, and making them easier will help you make them faster, and that's important, not get stuck. So I think these are the 3 things I can recommend right now.
Nice. What would your 3 non-negotiables be when it comes to entrepreneurship?
So for myself, you mean? So what do I?
Yes, for yourself.
So, okay, so my first thing is integrity. So I would not lie to anybody, and I don't want people to lie to me. So if they do, I will fire them. I did in the past.
But you know what? If it's that important to you, I totally respect that.
Yeah. So that's so. Let me think about the second thing. So second thing is openness. So you have to be open to change things. And the third, which is a bit contradictional to that, is you have to be able to follow some tasks even over difficult times. So you have to be sticking to it and at the same time be open. That seems contradictory, but it's actually it's 2 things, 2 capabilities people should have. And if you combine these 2, it will lead to success, I'm quite sure.
Excellent. Carsten, I'm all out of questions. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the Leadership Labs. Today's guest was Carsten Kraus. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anthony.
That concludes another enlightening episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and informative, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the Leadership Labs. Until next time.